Hello, Ken. Welcome to your Wednesday evening weirding session. I'm your host, C. Savory, creator of Fractal Praxis. It's a beautiful and windy day out here, so we'll see how this audio does. True to form, I am once again experimenting with these WEWS shape, how I deliver them and what I say in them. And today I want to talk about the collective unraveling and degradation that we find ourselves in at the political scale, and what a feasible response to that is. So, currently in my country of origin, I bear witness to fascists having come to power who, in the mirror, in the projection, and in the model of their own emotional wound that has gone unprocessed, probably for generations, and in their craven desire to control and dictate the lives of others, and in their flawed, deeply flawed model of the world and perception of reality based on internalized beliefs layered over time that are themselves deeply flawed. They attempt to repress and deny the rights of people and dehumanize people and incarcerate and deport people and annihilate programs that a great many people have built over the years from a place of intending to better serve, to better understand and serve the needs of the population. And so what we have on our hands is a very grave and enormous scale of dismantling, of unraveling, of dismantling, of decontextualizing, of rendering dysfunctional to perhaps never again function at the same level of complexity. We are in a decomplexification process. Now, I have studied civilization collapse, the patterning of civilization collapse, and I remember first learning about this, and it really struck me, the language that I'm going to share with you now. Civilizations sometimes collapse due to unsustainable complexity. Unsustainable complexity. So in the imaginations and in the worldviews of these rigid fascists, there's no will and there's no ability to honor complexity and diversity and to work to sustain and maintain it. As a matter of fact, their goal is to artificially, through their oppressive regime and belief system, reduce complexity, oversimplify things until it's all collapsed into a framework that conforms to their existing worldview and value system. This is a problem. This is very much a problem. And if I were to generalize this on a pattern level, I would say that this behavior is anti-life. And I don't mean that in the kind of the way that the phrase pro-life and pro-choice have been absorbed by the abortion movement. I'm speaking about life at the pattern level and what life does and what life promotes, as contrasted with entropy. Entropy being death, or the dismantling of complexity. Life moves in the direction of greater complexity, and life honors complexity and diversity. Life life, to be in solidarity and in embrace of life, looks like embodying a cultural stance of being open and curious and toward people of difference, toward other cultures, and when confronted with difference, taking on the inner work to find a way to make this phenomenon in front of you that contrasts with your previous existence, perhaps, find a way to make that make sense, and to internalize it, and to find a way to apply understanding to it as best you can, and when you can't, to remain in the discomfort, to remain in the lack of resolution, and to simply proceed in good faith and in care and love for others. So that is what genuine humanistic leadership would look like. The capacity within ourselves and within our cultures to make space for difference. Now, in the midst of all this active unraveling, people's lives are being thrown into turmoil. People are being deprived of resources and structures that they depended on. And this is not just some news story that we can gloss over. This is having massive ripple effects across society. And we are actively eroding any collective power that we have when we don't respond, when we don't cohere around a coalition movement and respond counteractively to this. The thing about the fascist perspective is, especially this particular capitalist brand of it, is these folks understand capitalism, they understand markets, they understand zero-sum competition and cutthroat, shark-like aggressive antisocial behavior. They also understand religion, right, and the kind of rigid structures involved in religion. But what they really seem to not understand, like genuinely not understand, and therefore want to subvert and want to, work around, is the collective. The collective. As a collective and cooperative organizer, as a profession for over a decade, I am very concerned that we, the people living in this society, also don't understand and forget the collective. Like, we don't make sense of our world on the scale of the collective anymore. It's all through this individualized media and this performance of, personal brands and whatnot. So my fear is that we've lost the collective. But for those of us who remember the collective, understanding what it means to be a collective, what it means to move as a collective, like a murmuration, which is something Adrienne Marie Brown talks about, that is going to be our ticket to greater liberation in this circumstance. And in general, to have a culture, to develop a culture that really honors the individual, the collective, the cultural, the intercultural exchanges, is going to be a path to our to the preservation of our liberation and to our actual joy and fulfillment and well-being. And people can talk about it in these macro terms like socialism, communism, whatever. I actually like to break it down into the granular patterns of what it takes to, what it actually requires to, have a fulfilled and happy life. And so this brings me to the last thing I want to talk about on this talk, which is, while there are those who in their model of brokenness reproduce brokenness and project it onto the rest of the world, who don't believe in a world that can make itself whole again, who don't believe in the earth, frankly, who don't believe in the people, who don't believe in us and our potential, who project that onto us, onto the world. In contrast to that, there are people albeit rare perhaps in this society, who understand whole making, W-H-O-L-E, whole making, the ability to make things whole again. When we look at what nature does, if there's an injury or if there's a sickness or a disaster, slowly nature, your own nature, our nature's life itself, will move in the direction of healing that. Now, we can never just go back to what we were before the wound. Instead, we have to become something more that incorporates the intelligence, the knowledge of the wound, and wraps it into a new whole, right? So, but whole making is the direction and is the process of life, and this is really crucial. Few people, but some people, sadly diminishingly few people, understand whole making as a praxis and understand the ways to make things whole again. I would point to indigenous social leaders, healers. My teacher and friend, dear teacher, Eutimia Cruz Montoya, shared the language of original medicine, people who are in touch with their purpose for being here in service to all life and can actually give those gifts abundantly and can heal others through those gifts. So indigenous healers, and really the domain of whole making, to be very explicit, is the domain of indigenous people and decolonizing and re-indigenizing people, which is how I identify. Because only if you're actually attuned and in tune with life can you have any understanding or any philosophy or any technique for this kind of whole making process. So even as things are unraveling epically and very well, certain forms that we are accustomed to, such as a federal government, could indeed collapse, there will be wholemakers, and it is our duty as people who want to live and people who want to embrace life and embrace diversity to seek out the wholemakers and to empower them with resources, with support, whatever. Wholemakers, not homemakers, wholemakers. And yes, I would look to women-bodied folk in general to receive guidance on wholemaking. My journey is one of a decolonizing and re-indigenizing person, and I've been walking this path for a little less, I think, than 2 decades, but it is what I offer, and it is really my commitment, my devotion. It involves unraveling the karma of my ancestors, which means adapting the way I live and changing the beliefs from which I operate, moving towards greater wholeness myself in a fractal of how we create wholeness collectively. And I believe that I have developed and cultivated ways to really, really attune to and partner with the dynamics of life, the patterns and the behaviors of life, so that we can have a more vibrant living scene. And this is something that I implore us to each cultivate ourselves, because in the face of disaster, we will all need each other, and we will not know exactly how our gifts and skills will be called upon, and the lives that we could save and the good that we could set in motion in the context of crisis. So I really encourage all of us, everyone watching this, and everyone watching this, please also share it with others. May you cultivate more wholeness in yourself, in your life ways. May you find the space for reflection. May you find the resources to move towards wholeness. May you find the kin, the community, to support you in this journey. And may you take these steps urgently, because while some of us fixate on the kind of short-lived thrill of tearing shit down, the rest of us have to be ready to reclaim our power in the aftermath in the form of building things back up and building new structures that incorporate the wounds of the old structures, right? I'm talking about societies that incorporate the karma of where we've come from, the same karma that motivates these nihilistic leaders, incorporating the wound into something more whole. Thank you for watching and listening. If you'd like to support my work, which I call Fractal Praxis, please make a donation, fractalpraxis.com/donate, or consider becoming a member at blog.fractalpraxis.com. Hit the subscribe button. You at least got to get on my newsletter. You can join the newsletter for free. You can also become an $8 a month subscriber just to show your support. And a $26 a month Embodier member if you really want to get involved with other community and go deeper with your re-indigenizing, decolonizing praxis. Anyway, in closing, I look forward to our next talk next week. Merry meet and merry part, and merry meet again. Blessings.